Gentlemen, this is a phenomenon. These pictures have been enhanced. Note this extraordinary object. It's got a powerful 16-valve engine and ABS. Look here, the name, highly unusual. And what is wrong with this picture? Precisely, air conditioning. This Desire costs just $13,990 on the road. It's one of 3 limited edition Xantias available now.
The Citroen Summer Phenomenon. Now there's something you don't see every year.
Unfortunately, we have no idea what this creature is.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Automotive Fact and History channel. Today's story is about the timeless Citroën Xantia, a car that helped rebuild Citroen's reputation for quality and reliability. Now back in the early 90s, Citroën was in a bit of a tough spot. Their mega popular midsize offering, the BX, had been on the market since 1982, and you could really tell. The car looked and felt pretty old by the early 90s, so they had to replace it. However, their recently launched executive car, the XM, was plagued with a host of issues, including total engine failure in some V6 models, wiring harness issues coupled with a bunch of electrical and suspension problems, poor headlight performance, and the list just goes on. Although the issues were sorted out in later years, the damage to both the XM and Citroen's reputation was done. With XM sales plummeting hard and the BX quickly becoming archaic, Citroën knew they needed a strong entry in order to stay competitive and afloat. Development of the new car, codenamed Project X, started in 1987 with 3 projects undertaken by PSA, Bertone, and Citroën themselves. PSA tried to push a more conventional design, in line with the recently launched ZX, which was little more than a Peugeot in disguise, while Citroën and Bertone both went with a sleeker look, reminiscent of the elegant XM. As with the XM, the Bertone design was chosen, which was both surprising and a significant indicator that PSA cost-cutting wasn't going to be a #1 priority. Now keep in mind that Citroën had been owned by Peugeot since the mid-70s. The reason being, they bankrupt themselves. And they did so by taking on some highly ambitious and very risky projects, such as rotary engine development with NSU, who by the way also went bankrupt. Buying Maserati so they could use their V6 engine in a small production Grand Tourer right before the 1973 oil crisis started, etc. And this wasn't even the first time they bankrupt themselves trying to innovate. The revolutionary Traction Avant, the world's first unibody front-wheel drive car, cost so much to develop that it bankrupted André Citroën, forcing him to sell the company to Michelin in 1934. Seeing how they had a tendency to go bankrupt, and following the XM's troubled launch, one would assume that now, under Peugeot supervision, their next car would be geared towards cost-effectiveness and being normal. But no, that's not Citroen's style. Instead, the new car had to be hydraulically suspended, in line with Citroen's tradition, but now with optional computer control, dubbed Hydractive 2, adding another layer of complexity to the already complex and expensive hydraulic suspension. Now, Citroën could have stopped suspension development right there, and no one would have blamed them. I mean, traditional fans would have been happy because the car had hydraulics, and the average driver would have been impressed by the excellent ride quality, but probably wouldn't care too much about the wizardry going on underneath him. The regular hydraulic suspension was perfectly adequate for a mass-produced midsize saloon. There was no real need to go any further. Citroën, however, deemed it necessary to offer customers active anti-roll bars on top of the already complex Hydractive 2, giving their average-looking midsize family car the ability to corner completely flat, practically without any body roll. The result? Pretty spectacular. In 1997, Swedish car magazine Teknikens Vald tested Xantia Activa on their traditional emergency maneuver test, also known as the elk test or the moose test. The Xantia had an exit speed of 85 kilometers per hour, which is about 53 miles per hour, and the highest speed ever recorded by the testers. That's a record that still stands, followed closely by an Audi R8, McLaren 675 LT, and a Nissan Qashqai, among others. Pretty spectacular indeed. Besides the suspension, a lot of engineering went into the drivetrain. Notably, Xantia was the first car to feature PSA's newly developed common rail diesel engine, a 2-liter unit dubbed the HDI. Only Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo offered common rail technology at the time, once again giving the Xantia a major technological advantage over most of its competitors. Also, PSA and Renault predicted a large increase in demand for automatic cars, and instead of giving their hard-earned money to some foreign manufacturer, like ZF or Aisin Warner, the French decided they could do it better. So PSA and Renault formed an alliance to develop and manufacture their own automatic transmissions. The result was a 4-speed unit that was fully computerized and adapted to your driving style, which was fairly advanced for its time. The new transmission debuted in the Xantia and made its way into an entire range of cars throughout the years, from the Peugeot 206 all the way to the Renault Laguna. By now, you're probably wondering how all of these innovations in the Xantia made any financial sense. I mean, the XM was a huge failure, costing PSA loads of money. What in the world were they thinking, putting so much money into the Xantia? Well, as it turns out, they were thinking, and quite a lot, about past mistakes and taking criticism into consideration. For example, the recently launched small hatchback, the ZX, received criticism that it was too regular, featuring conventional suspension, brakes, and steering. So they made sure that the Xantia featured all of the traditional Citroen features, and then some. Also, Citroen had a reputation for launching underdeveloped and unfinished products onto the market. This was a direct result of underfunding and rushing to launch a car that really wasn't ready yet, in order to stay competitive. Such an approach often backfired, as seen with the poorly selling XM, and Citroen wasn't about to make the same mistake again. The Xantia had to be built right, from the start. A lot of engineering effort was put into aerodynamics, noise reduction, ergonomics, fit and finish, quality control, etc. The end result was impressive. The Xantia was launched in March 1993, after 6 years of development, and it was an instant smash. Praised by both the press and public, and with the sales to show it, it was a serious contender in the mid-size class, and proof that Citroen had what it takes to launch a well-built, reliable car that was also true to its roots. In 1994, the Activa became available as an option on a wide variety of engines, ranging from the 2.1-liter turbo diesel, which made 110 horsepower, up to the range-topping 3-liter V6 petrol. The former was jointly developed by PSA and Renault, and introduced in 1997, as the top-of-the-range option. It could be had with a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed automatic. Praised for its wonderful sound, great performance and reliability, a V6 Xantia in Activa trim with the 5-speed manual was the one to have in 1997. 1998, however, brought an important revision, which included a restyled front end similar to the restyled XM, optional passenger and side airbags, as well as structural changes to improve crashworthiness, among other things. Most notably, the facelifted version got the brilliant 2-liter HDI engine. The new engine was very refined, had strong performance and excellent fuel economy, as well as proving extremely reliable and capable of covering mega mileage trouble-free. All things considered, the 110 horsepower HDI was the best all-around engine for the Xantia. You could also get an Activa with the HDI, combining performance, comfort, economy, and unrivaled handling for a diesel. The Xantia really was the entire package. Well, almost. The thing is, it had one pretty big drawback. It was terribly unsafe. Euro NCAP The European Car Safety Assessment Program tested the Xantia along with its peers in 1997, and the results were quite shocking. Now, to be fair, most cars didn't do that well in the first round of testing, except the Volvo S40, which scored the maximum 4 stars because Volvo. But anyway, even for those standards at the time, the Xantia was bad. The worst, actually. Of all the family cars, the Xantia was the worst car tested. The BMW 3 Series actually did worse in the front impact, but better in the side impact, so it was placed 1 point above the Xantia, but really it was just as bad. The Xantia was discontinued in Europe in 2002, after 9 years of production and more than 1.5 million units produced, although it continued to be built under license in Iran up till 2010. It was, and still is, almost universally acclaimed and recognized as one of Citroen's finest efforts. A car for the enthusiast and regular folk alike. A Citroen that for once was easy to live with.